Even men at the top of their game find themselves wanting more from life. Whether it's more meaning, unshakable confidence, a bigger impact, more money, deeper love, a hotter sex life, or a powerful legacy. Find out how good your life can be on this episode of Man Alive. Also, as I've supported men in their love and work lives for 15 years now, many men ask for the right words to say to be more successful, attractive, and desirable. But I found it's not so simple as giving scripts or lines because every man is different. So giving words or scripts would be like giving a tall, thin man a shorter, wider man's pants, or vice versa. The words have to make sense for you and your personality, and there's so much happening beneath the surface that people are responding to. If you're interested in how to become a better lover and leader in your own unique way, go to shanajamescoaching.com/quiz, or you can text ALIVE to 44144. It only takes a couple minutes and you'll start to get an idea of how you can be both more respected and desired. After you fill it out, we can schedule a time to review your quiz and talk about your specific challenges and desires. So again, go to either shanajamescoaching.com/quiz or text ALIVE to 44144. That's ALIVE to 44144. Enjoy this episode of Man Alive. Hello and welcome to this episode of Man Alive. I'm your host, Shana James, and I'm excited to be here today with Bryan Reeves. Bryan, welcome.
Hi, Shana. Pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Bryan is a relationship coach and workshop facilitator, and we are going to dive into the topic of your heart today. And, there's a lot of talk these days about emotional intelligence and intimacy and connection and love, and it's becoming more part of the common culture, and men are being asked to step up. And part of what I love about you, Bryan, is that when we started talking about this, you were like, let's talk about what the fuck it means and why does it even matter and why do men need to connect to their hearts? And I just felt this wave of like relief, and it just feels so refreshing to have this really honest conversation like this. So, for you men who are listening and you've been like, what are people talking about? And what is, if you're in a heterosexual relationship, like, what is she asking of me? And how do I can't even make sense of this.
Yeah.
This conversation is going to be amazing for you.
Yeah. Well, I grew up on the East Coast.
Me too.
And, so that's why it excites you. I love California. I'm glad I live here, but I wasn't born here. So for me, it's not like just some obvious notion. Yeah, man, come from heart, live in your heart, bro. No, I don't know what the fuck that means. No one taught me that growing up. You go to school, you go to college, you get your job, you work, you do your thing. Heart, what the hell is that? That's for winning football games in the last few seconds, or that's for going harder on the wrestling mat. That's what heart meant to me growing up as a boy and then a man.
Yes.
It had nothing to do with relationships or intimacy.
No. And I want to give you a quick introduction. And part of, again, what I love that you bring here is that you are a former U.S. Air Force captain.
Yeah.
And so, you've interacted with many, many people in the military. And then you became an author, coach, and speaker, and that you've been through a lot of your own dark nights of the soul after, as you describe it, hurling yourself into the transformational fires of intimate relationship over and over again. And, you have a master's degree, in human relations, and you've been coaching men and women and couples to create thriving relationships. And, you have a blog, Choose Her Every Day or Leave Her, and 2 books, including the latest, Tell the Truth and Let the Peace Fall Where It May. Peace, P-E-A-C-E. And again, I'm really grateful that you're here. And part of my personal practice is telling the truth more and more and more, and being able to risk. And, that part about letting the peace fall where it may, it's like, I think we can often get into relationships where we're trying to hold on so tightly and we're so afraid of them falling apart that we can start to hide truth, hide our hearts, and then we end up, distant, disconnected. So thank you for tackling this really important topic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely, my relationship with truth has also evolved over the years, and I think in the direction of heart.
Yeah.
Particularly through doing intimate relationship work as a certainly as a coach, but just being in it.
Yeah.
Realizing that what is truthful for me, you know, it doesn't necessarily mean that my partner needs to hear it,
Mm-hmm.
or that she needs to hear it in the way that I want to deliver it,
Mm-hmm.
or at the time that I want to deliver it. Like, I just, yeah, I've had a really beautifully evolving relationship with this whole thing called truth. Even since I wrote that book, Tell the Truth, Let the Peace Fall Where It May. And
Mm-hmm.
again, I think it's very relevant to this conversation that we're going to have today about connecting to the heart.
Yeah.
Um,
And I
and
know you said you worked with a senior military commander who
yeah,
came to you because he somehow recognized his heart wasn't awake or feeling alive. So I'm curious if you can tell us a little bit about that and how he even knew that.
yeah, that was about, maybe 4 years ago. Yeah, it was about 4 years ago. A man came to work with me. He was a colonel in the Air Force, so lifelong military guy and pilot. He'd flown over in the Gulf Wars, and now he was commanding legions of men and women in sort of combat missions as well. And before he came to work with me, he had a dream. Well, first off, everything in his life other than his work was kind of collapsing.
Mm-hmm.
Relationship with his children, relationship with going through a divorce, even breaking up with his girlfriend at the time.
Uh-huh.
And he had a dream that he told me about in our first conversation, and it was a dream in which he essentially he was speaking to a woman that he later realized when he woke up. He realized that I was talking to my heart.
Huh. The woman in the dream
The
represented his heart.
woman, this sparkly-eyed woman in his dream,
Wow.
he just woke up and knew I just had a conversation with my heart.
Mm.
And again, this is a colonel in the military
Yeah.
sharing this story, and he's like, okay, so you know help me, help me.
Mm-hmm.
And that launched he and I on a we probably worked together for probably close to a year, maybe 9 months or so. And it was he completely, as he did this work of kind of reconnecting to his heart, and I'd love to explore what the hell that
Yep.
means, and again, likewise, kind of why is it important, why does it matter. But as he was doing this work, everything changed for him. Whereas like a lot of people when they leave the military, um, will just go right in and get a civilian job as a defense contractor, or just kind of keep doing what they were doing in the military and just do it now in the private sector, but make 3 times as much money.
Yeah.
And I was presented with that choice when I was leaving the military at 26 years old. Do
Wow.
I just keep doing what I was doing? I was fucking miserable, but I was
Mm.
making good money. I had prestige. I had security. I had a home. I had everything that I thought I was supposed to want. I had a girlfriend at the
God,
time as well.
that's such a common thing I hear from men, right? The prestige, the money, the stability. Like, I'm
Absolutely.
miserable, but
Status.
isn't this what life is? Or, don't I have to endure this?
Exactly. I think, yeah, I mean, military or not, that's kind of, I think what a lot of us men are, I call it focusing on the castle. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're building the castle. We're great castle builders, or at least that's what we aspire to have, a strong, sturdy castle.
Yeah.
But then we overlook, or we don't know how, rather, to tend to the fire
Mm.
inside in the hearth.
Yeah.
The hearth of the castle. That is the one language we might use is kind of the feminine fire inside of that castle. I don't mean another person in the castle, but I mean the fire in our own being.
Yeah.
And that's what certainly was missing for me when I was 26 and getting out of the military and figuring out what the hell do I do with my life. I knew that if I just went and worked for more in the private sector and made 3 times as much money doing the same thing I was doing, that I may as well just kill myself,
Mm.
because
Wow. It
it
was
was
just
a
a
slow
downward
path
spiral.
to my
Yeah.
death.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And
And how did you, I mean, just for men who are still kind of getting a sense of, okay, heart, what is this? And how do I even connect with my heart? How do I know if I'm connecting with my heart? Like,
yeah,
how did you know?
yeah.
Yeah. How did you know?
Oh, well, I knew. I probably wouldn't have used this language back then.
Yes.
But I knew because I just felt dead. I
Hmm.
felt dead inside. I definitely couldn't cry, but
Uh-huh.
I also couldn't really laugh. I mean, I could laugh, but it was kind of neck up laughter.
Yep.
It wasn't really a full body experience. I couldn't really experience
It wasn't like you were
joy.
losing yourself in the laughter or the joy or any.
Exactly. No, I couldn't get carried away by joy or excitement or enthusiasm. I just couldn't. And and I think, I kind of likened it to, even at the time though, it is interesting. I did have this kind of vision of when I was in college, I was just on fire. My whole being, I wanted to save the world, kick ass in the world, do huge things, like 20-year-olds always think we're gonna do,
Yes.
want to do. Um, and by the time I was 26, though, that fire was barely, it was like the pilot light in my furnace was out.
Yeah.
And so I just knew, I just could feel, I felt empty in
Yeah.
what I was doing. It was meaningless and pointless, and someone else can do this. The
Yeah.
world doesn't need me to do this. That was kind of my attitude about it.
Got it. I
I'm
mean,
not needed in this.
yeah, it's interesting too when I think about these days where we have so much to occupy our attention. I mean, there's always been TV and news and media, but these days with our phones and our gadgets and everything, I mean, we can outrun, and I think a lot of men do outrun um, this sense of emptiness or isolation or deadness until sometimes, and I hear this from men, sometimes it's like laying awake at night, just with this the grip of fear or that sense of something is wrong, or waking up in the morning like with the morning dreads. And
Yeah.
then I've seen other men who've come in and um, it hasn't been as acute in a way,
Yeah.
but something, it's either like a relationship ended like you said, or a promote there was being passed over for a promotion, or a relationship with a kid, or sometimes it takes another person and an interaction with another person to really see,
Yeah.
oh, something's not right here, something's not working here.
Yeah. I actually feel very fortunate that the military was so painful for me,
Mm,
because it really forced that confrontation with
yes.
with my disconnect, my internal disconnect. And you're so right. I think for a lot of men, we can kind of just make do with what we're doing. And it's interesting. Even this morning, I was telling my partner, because I've been feeling really pulled in a million different directions this year, and there's so many great things happening in my business and in my work, and but I'm at a point where I feel like, okay, I need to take a step back, because
Yes.
I'm starting to get angry at my own work. I'm
Uh-huh.
starting to get resentful at what I'm asking myself to do every day. And I was
Mm,
telling her this morning, I think I might just take July off of
yeah.
social media, for example,
Yeah.
just to quiet, not even me checking social media. I don't really have a problem with me being on social media too much. It's running a business on social media
Uh-huh.
that is taking so much of my creative energy, and I'm starting to feel the resentment towards it. And that's
Mm.
all pretty much always.
Important to listen to.
Absolutely. That is such an important sign for me. It's evidence that I'm choosing to engage in activities that maybe they're not in alignment with
Yes.
my deeper kind of soul's calling just at the
Yes.
moment.
Well, and like, right. So when, first of all, what I'm hearing is you recognize that you could actually be happy, or happy might be too, general of a word, but like you could actually love what you do. You could actually feel inspired on a daily basis. And so that level of life satisfaction, your bar is raised, I think, in such a way from where some men sit, that it's like, oh, I
Yeah,
deserve this, to be happy.
yeah,
And then to listen, like, and to feel that anger or that resentment and realize this doesn't have to be a crisis. It doesn't have to mean I leave my job or
right.
completely change everything or leave my relationship. But okay, what's one small step? What could I do this week or this month
That's
to
right.
actually feel better?
Absolutely. Yeah. It doesn't require huge dramatic shifts necessarily, but it almost certainly does require a creating, how would I say this, kind of shutting down a lot of the noise
Yeah.
for at least a time. And whether that means, and actually, part of the reason I'm thinking of doing this in July is because I'm going on a men's retreat to Norway in the middle of the month for about a week. And me and my lady are taking a week off next week and just not working
Mm-hmm.
here, just kind of a staycation. And I'm realizing it's really such a potent moment for me to shut down all of that fucking noise of the world for just a little bit so I can reconnect
Right. Listen to
to
you, find
myself.
out you, what really is mattering, and in all of the noise of all the amazing things happening, right? Where are you and in this
Absolutely.
service that you're being to others?
Absolutely. And I can't do that while I'm still programming and creating Instagram posts every day.
Right. Yeah.
It's just especially if it's making me angry to do it.
Well, and I love that because, someone else listening might be like, well, you could. And in a way, you could if you were overriding those parts of yourself. But
Totally.
we're having a different conversation about, no,
Absolutely.
that's not the point here.
Absolutely. And I could, and I've done it for a lifetime. I
Right.
did it in the military for the 10 years that I was in,
Yeah.
and it crushed me. It
Yeah.
damn near, it destroyed my passion for life.
Yeah.
And I think you were saying, I don't know if maybe before we were recording, but one of the about men committing suicide. That's where I was going to go with this.
Yeah.
And what I was kind of shocked to learn, although it doesn't surprise me that the highest demographic of people who commit suicide, at least in the U.S., is essentially white middle-aged men.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't surprise me. I'm actually one of those now. I'm a white middle-aged man, and I think. But I just have a theory about that, and I think I don't know. I'll just share this.
Yeah.
But I think my theory of that is that, first off, white men, we're the ones that are supposed to get everything we think we want. And so then either we get it
Yeah.
and it doesn't work,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't light us up, or we don't get it and we thought we were supposed to.
Yep.
And so we're angry and pissed off and hopeless and basically, well, let me just get me out of here.
Yeah.
It's kind of my quick theory, but it all comes back to still the lack of connection to heart,
Yes.
the noise in the brain, and the lack of just being able to connect to our own internal fire.
Yeah. So, okay, can you say more about that? So, when you're talking about connecting to your heart, and for a man who's listening and is like, this sounds like Greek or Egyptian or whatever, how do you guide men to connect to their hearts?
So one of the things that I think in any good men's work, one of the first things we start to do is learn to feel our bodies again.
Yeah.
Or maybe for the first time. But we learn to start feeling what's happening, the phenomenon in our body, the tightness in our shoulders, the rigidity of our faces, maybe,
Yeah.
Our shallow breathing.
In such a different way. I just want to make a note, in such a different way than athleticism, right? Because sometimes men are like, well, I'm in my body, I exercise all the time, I run triathlons, but what you're talking about is more of this presence and awareness of in the moment, how your body actually feels.
That's right. How your body actually feels in the moment, not when you're not checking your heart rate to see if you've achieved your optimal
Right.
heart rate. No, but actually noticing the more subtle flavors of experience, of phenomenon in the body. Also emotionally, feelings. What are we, a lot of times it's because it's fascinating. A lot of times you ask a man, what are you feeling? And he'll tell you what he's thinking.
Exactly. That happens all the time.
What am I feeling? Well, shit, today was a tough day because my boss was just a jerk. And so wait a second.
I think tomorrow I need to do this, this, or that, or I think
Exactly.
all those.
And so, in order to, and yeah, because this whole connect to heart, there's a lot of talk of vulnerability and love and all this out there, and that's all beautiful. but let's make it practical.
Yeah.
Bring it down to earth, by which I mean just into the body. So, connecting to our own bodies, feeling what is there to be felt. My a coach that I've worked with, Steve James, if you don't know of him, Shani, you should definitely learn about his work. I can connect you, but
yeah.
he redefined intimacy for me when he said intimacy is simply feeling what is there to be felt, and seeing what is there to be seen. When I meditate with him, one of the instructions that he'll offer is notice or feel the sensations that reveal the presence of a body. Reveal the presence of a body. That's so fascinating as a man. Sit there, and I remember a couple came to work with me a few years ago, and the woman, I was a heterosexual couple, and she was really upset because he liked to drive fast on this one stretch of road between their house and the town near where they lived. And the thing she said, I'll never forget it, because he loved driving fast, and
it felt really exciting to him.
It makes us feel alive, to be on the edge of death. That's us men. We come alive, we feel. But she said something, I'll never forget it. She's like, it's like he doesn't even know he has a body. And she's right. We men, I regularly forget to eat or drink water because I'm so focused on whatever mission or outcome I'm focused on. And so I think, any good, worthy men's work will usually the first thing we'll do is start to re-establish a connection between our brain and the rest of our body, not just like our bones, but our body.
Yes, it's like a re-inhabiting too. I mean, I over the years have noticed, that I can look into a man's eyes, and there's this shift that happens. And so, if a woman or anyone else is not really aware of what it's like to be connected through the body and through the emotions versus just the head, they probably wouldn't notice, because the look is almost the same. But then there's like, when that connection happens, or that inhabiting of, oh, now I can feel my body in relation to life. Now I can feel my emotions in relation to life. It's like this spark comes alive in a person's eyes, and suddenly they're there and I'm there. And suddenly, like you said, we can be intimate in a completely different way. It's like now we're using way more colors on a canvas as opposed to, black and white.
I was watching, yesterday with my lady. I was feeling very emotionally constipated. I was very frustrated yesterday.
I like that term.
Some things I was triggered yesterday by some things I saw in the social media sphere. But I felt I couldn't really cry it out. I just felt constipated. And my lady, she suggested, well, let's watch a movie. And I was like, yeah, let's watch a movie that's going to make me cry. So we even, we got our iTunes and our Apple TV, and we spoke movies that are going to make me cry. And this movie, Me Before You, came up with the dragon lady from Game of Thrones. Anyway, we watched it, and it's a beautiful, sweet, and tragic love story. And
did you cry?
I'm bawling at the end, and I looked at her at the end, and I said, babe, I really get it's got to be so hard being a woman on this planet. And I said that to her only in the context of knowing she feels everything all the time.
Yep.
She's so connected to her body, so connected to her, to what's happening for her emotionally. And it can be, it's hard in a way. I know
it's really overwhelming. And I think, right, especially then as a man coming into your body, when you haven't been familiarized with it your whole life, right? Suddenly to be like, whoa, I'm feeling that over there and this over here. And now she's feeling sad and I can feel it. And what am I supposed to do? And how am I supposed to fix this? And right, like all of that starts to happen.
Well, and that's the beauty of this I like how you said re-inhabiting the body. That's the beauty of this is as men, look, if we want to do intimate relationship with someone, if we want to go live in a cave somewhere, go off to a monastery, then never mind all this. You can can turn this podcast off now. But if you want to do intimate relationship, the learning to feel your own body, learning to really feel what's happening inside your body, the sensations that reveal the presence of having a body, and also though emotionally, the emotional rhythms that are moving. When I got out of the military at 26, I couldn't feel any of that.
Yeah.
And I tried to do intimate relationship from that place.
What happened?
It was a disaster.
Yeah.
It was an absolute disaster. I had great intentions, but I couldn't feel anything. And so all that resulted was angry women.
Uh-huh. Which is interesting. That totally happens. I've seen this over and over, and I've seen it, in my personal life. I've seen it with clients, family, everything. It's like when men aren't there in a way, like when a man's not actually feeling, his emotions or feeling his body, women start to get louder and angrier, and they start to attack. And it's almost like somehow, and I work with women to help them realize this isn't necessarily going to wake up a man, but
No.
right, there's something where it's just like, wake the fuck up. Like, what? I can't find you. I need you. I'm alone over here. And women get pissed. And right, it's a terrible dynamic.
Well, I heard Terry Real, the therapist who specializes in working with what would you call grandiose or stubborn men in couples. He said, I heard him say just this morning on a live Q&A I was on with him, that angry women, by and large, are women who feel unheard.
Yeah.
And I realized that, look, I could hear a lot, but I didn't really hear what
right. You're kind of listening, but not really getting it on those deep.
I'm analyzing. I'm evaluating. Is this valid? Is what they're telling me valid? And if I can't feel it, then it must not be real for them either.
And right. So then there's that dismissal.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. So yeah, it was disastrous to do intimacy that way. And when I show up in that way in my current relationship, I'm with my lady for 4 years now. And when I have an episode of, well, if I can't feel this, it must not be real for you either, then it goes sideways immediately. But when I'll do a practice of, I'll notice when I'm with my partner, if we start to disagree in a way that can become heated, I first will look at my body language. How am I holding my body? Are my arms crossed? And they often are. Is my body turned away from her? It often is. Like I'm protecting myself.
Yeah. I love that recognition too, right? Oh, I'm protecting myself. And there's an amazing book called Undefended Love. And, really looks at that place of like, well, what are we protecting anyway? Right.
That's right. And I'm usually just protecting an old wound or a belief,
right,
that I'm practically willing to die for.
Right. That belief that you need to be strong, you need to hold it together, you need to be the rock. I mean, all those.
Or I need her to not feel bad. That's a big one. I need her to not feel bad, because if she feels bad, then that must mean I'm a fuck up somehow, right. And I can't have that. Yeah. And I know my intentions are good, so she needs to get with the program so that this
aligns. This
aligns exactly.
Yeah.
And that just, Shana, that just never seems to go well.
No.
Imagine that.
No. Well, I think we are getting to the why does it matter, right? I mean, it matters in relationship, because without men, you listening, without being connected to your heart, your emotions, your body, right? There's a whole, there's so much of intimacy that doesn't get to happen. And then we're in these analytical relationships, or for a lot of men, it feels like friendship, or, we've become roommates. We're not even having this love or sensuality. So there's that part. And then I'm wondering if you can speak to the why does it even matter, even beyond relationship, right? Just for a man on his own, living his own life.
Yeah, absolutely. It is about relationship again, but relationship to my own life, to my own joy, to my own satisfaction, to my own deep fulfillment. I think when I was living out the program that I have to do what the military wants me to do, or I have to do what someone else wants me to do, or whatever that looks like. I have to pay the bills. I have to go to college because that's what mom said.
Mm-hmm.
I have to study math because I guess, well, I'm good at it. I don't like it, but I'm good at it. So I guess I have to do that.
Yeah.
I, you know, I had no relationship with my own heart, with my own deep, deep yearning is another way of saying that. My own longing, um, my own excitement, my own curiosity. And again, if I'm not connecting to my own heart, and again, by which I just mean I'm not kind of in love with what I'm doing every day, or at least
Mm-hmm.
at least um at least enjoying the life I'm choosing, then I'm going to be a miserable person to be around. And
Yeah.
I've been I am a miserable person to be around
When that happens.
when that starts to happen. And I can feel like even these last few weeks, I'm starting to feel that same. And I love my work, Shayna. I love what I do. I'm so in alignment with what I'm doing. But I think what's happening and is that the way that I'm doing it is starting to become
Yes.
out of alignment.
Yes.
So
Right.
it's
It feels
almost
like
like a,
you're kind of overextending, or there's more that
yeah.
you're giving than.
Or I'm not making there's a particular choice I'm not making to kind of move in a direction. I'm still generalizing
Mhm.
in a way where something maybe is agitating me
Uh-huh.
to commit to a particular
Right. I mean,
direction.
this is exciting. I mean, I can feel how this, for so many people, not just men, right? But that moment can be really risky and terrifying. And there's also this excitement of, okay, what are you going to discover, and how does it matter and create a deeper, more meaning and um, more impact, more ability to actually feel like your life matters to yourself.
Yeah, and I think like these moments, I used to call them the crossroads. Now
Yes.
I tend to call them more confrontations.
Interesting.
But not a confrontation with someone else, a confrontation within myself, a
Mhm.
confrontation with an old pattern, an old belief, an old fear, an old wound. Um, I see this in relationships with, particularly when men tend to, I wonder your experience, but particularly when men hit our late 30s, early 40s,
Mhm.
we tend to hit a confrontation with our adolescent psychological resistance to taking responsibility.
Uh-huh.
And it's usually an intimate relationship that's the catalyst for us to go, oh shit, okay, I better become a man now, which
Yeah.
means it gives men take responsibility. Men, adolescents, we don't want any responsibility. We just want to play
Play.
and adventure. And that's an important stage in our lives for sure.
Yeah.
But when it comes to taking responsibility and committing, really is what that means. Committing to a
Mhm.
direction, whether it's a relationship or work, some career purpose, or even just committing to figuring out what that is.
Yeah.
That's a commitment. Being committed to finding it. That I think that very much that is a path of heart.
Yeah.
That is a path of discovering heart. When I worked with this
Mm.
colonel, to kind of bring it full circle,
Yeah.
when I worked with this colonel, he was at a confrontation. He'd been in the military for 22 years, maybe. So he could retire any day now. And he was faced with the decision, as I said earlier, do I just keep doing what I'm doing and get paid 3 times as much? But this isn't really lighting me up.
Yeah.
I feel empty inside. And so he hired me. We worked together, and what he decided to do, and I don't give advice, but what he figured out for himself, he decided rather than just take another job, he was going to take a year off
Mm.
and just go travel and get in his truck and just go travel the states, do some workshops, kind of visit some places he'd wanted to visit, just again, kind of quiet all the noise down
Nice.
so he could hear his heart.
Uh-huh.
And that is a commitment, the commitment to as I said, like just figuring it out, finding it, whether that means hiring somebody, whether that means, it doesn't necessarily mean leaving a job or leaving a relationship,
Right.
but it probably does mean quieting some noise and getting support
Yeah.
hiring somebody, or again, reading books, or going to workshops. I mean, my journey's been all over the damn map in that regard. Um, but I think, again, it just comes back to, I know I can't show up for my lady
Yeah.
and for our relationship in my body if I'm not connected to my own heart, to my own passion, to my own joy for my life.
Yes.
I'm just not a pleasant person to be around when I'm disconnected from my heart.
Thank you. And thank you for admitting that, right? And so it's not like you're above and beyond that, and for modeling that. And also I like what you just said too around passion and joy. And so if it feels strange for you listening to be like, oh, I'm connecting with my heart, right? It's like I'm connecting with my passion, my joy, my zest for life, my aliveness, my love for myself, my love for other people, right? To me, that kind of fleshes out, okay, what even is your heart? And the ability to be impacted by people, not just think about, or like you said, analyze, or put something in the box of right or wrong, but to really to have more of a deep connection and intimacy with others. So
Yeah.
thank you for supporting men with this. And I'm curious, what do you want to leave men with on this topic?
Yeah. Well, I want men to know you're not supposed to figure this out alone.
Mm-hmm.
There is solitary work to do here. Um, when I ran away from the military, there was no YouTube, there was no Facebook,
Yeah.
there was barely email. This was in the year I got out when I was in 2000, and so I threw myself into crisis by myself. I didn't hire a coach. I didn't even know coaching was a thing.
Yeah.
Therapist, what's that for? Why would I do that? Nothing's wrong with me. That was my attitude.
Right.
I just wandered, and it was a fucking really hard path to walk by myself. And
Mm-hmm.
I hit some bottoms and went through some really awful dark nights of the soul in that journey. And, we really live in a day and age where we don't have to look, there's still going to be these confrontations. It's not going to be easy, but we were never supposed to do this alone.
No.
And
No.
we're definitely not supposed to do it alone today.
Yeah.
And so that's the message that I want to leave, whether you're called to work with a man or work with a woman or do men's groups or whatever it is, but just know you don't have to do this alone. In fact,
Mhm.
I don't encourage you to do it alone.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the problem, and part of that lack of aliveness does happen when there's isolation, in a sense like, well, I can't admit this to anyone, or I can't show these parts of me to anyone, these parts that don't feel up to snuff, or
Yeah.
so I love that you're bringing that piece of find others, find one person you trust, or seek out someone like us who actually does this work, and let yourself be held. And for many men, that's never really happened in this way.
Yeah. Especially in this domain, we'll get business mentors or coaches for the basketball court, for our basketball skills, but not for our relationship skills, or and again, relationship to self
Yeah.
skills.
Yeah.
And that's where it's
Awesome.
probably more important than any of that other stuff.
Yes, thank you. Well, okay, so you're not going to be on social media in July, but if people want to find you, where can they find you?
Well, my website, Bryan with a Y, BryanReeves.com, really is one-stop shopping. And I probably will have my social media manager still be rocking out on social media. And I mean, it's my business. I'm not going to disappear from it altogether. And again, I'm just
I
floating
wouldn't
this as,
I wouldn't fault you if you did take some time off.
thank
And
you. Yeah, I'm definitely going to take some time, whether it's a month. These are the real world considerations.
yeah,
But Bryan with a Y, BryanReeves.com. I have a lot of blogs there that speak to so much of what we've just been talking about, and a
awesome.
lot of great stuff, great resources there for men and women.
Great. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Shayna. I really appreciate you having me.
I'm so glad you joined us for today's episode of Man Alive. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and it gave you something to consider and explore in your life. If you like what you heard, I'd be so grateful for you to subscribe and write a quick review that helps men like you find us. And again, head over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/quiz, or text the word ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 to get a sense of how you can become a better lover and leader. You'll start to see how you can be both more respected and desired in your unique and genuine way. If you don't feel as confident or as excited about life or love as you'd like to be, this quiz is a really great starting point and will guide you toward a more passionate love life and a more inspiring and successful career. So again, text ALIVE, ALIVE, to 44144 or head over to ShaynaJamesCoaching.com/quiz. Join us each week for a new episode of Man Alive.